Hello and welcome back to the Mountain Men channel. This is our mini-series on the history of our Austro Hungarian regiment across the Eastern Front and the Southwest Front, or Italy. In the last video we looked at the Eastern Front, seeing what and where LIR-4 were doing in the Galician region of the Empire. In this video we're going to be looking at what they did on the Southwestern or Italian Front. We will cover many battles over the years from 1915 to 1918. Their transition into being named G.Sch.1 Regiment No. 1 and the late war mutiny. Once again, before we begin, we'd like to give a shout out to Hermann Hinterstroisser and the rest of the writers of the Austrian Mountain Regiment book. A lot of this information has helped us pin down a lot of the regimental history, as well as the Dolomitenfruende Museum, especially Thomas Eger for providing a few key specific points in the history of the regiments, as well as providing with a direct source that we could use to help us with this video. And finally, thanks to the fantastic To Hell and Back project, where they have provided the videos. Be sure to go and support them. Now, without further ado, let us get to it. So in the last video, we ended it around about the middle of 1916. However, for the Italian front, we will need to go back to 15. Due to the Italians entering the war and Carinthia being nestled on the northern Italian border, Austria had to raise up as many replacement units as possible. Once the majority of the early major battles of the East had concluded, LIR-4 would be recalled back to Austria to defend the border. However, this would take around 5 days, as that is what it took for them to get to Styria back in 1914. These replacements battalions would be made up of both volunteers and conscripts, and they would help plug the gaps up along the front until the regiments returned. Just a quick plug as well, I'm going to say they also used Germans to plug the line. If you want to know more about that, please also have a look at our Alpenkorps video. But anyway, once LIR-4 returned, they joined up with their replacement units, replenishing their numbers, as well as some of the Salzburg rifles. Once they returned to Austria, they were moved to the area around Mount Kern in Slovenia. So LIR-4 and their Slovene cousins LIR-27 made up parts of the 44th Landwehr Division in the army group under the command of General de Cavallerie Franz von Denta. And in the tough winter of 1516, the division saw action in the Fitzach Basin near the Battle of Saggio. So now we're caught back up, we're back in June of 1916. Konrad von Hotzendorf, the main field marshal of the Imperial and Royal Army, wanted to advance with two armies through the mountains to cut off the Italians fighting at the Isonzo. Though a unique attempt, it was justly never repeated, as performed by both regiments along with the Tyrolean Landesschützen. So on the 3rd of June, the 1st Battalion of LIR-4, together with Infantry Regiment 59 of Salzburg, they would storm Mount Sengio, entering the famous Fort Corbin, leading them taking an impressive 1,400 Italian soldiers prisoner. But Italian counter-attacking measures put the battalions under great difficulty. In the evening, the 2nd and 3rd Battalions of LIR-27 sent in reinforcements, which succeeded in bringing about a decisive turning point in the battle. Oberbrigadier Majewski advanced them at the right moment so that the area between Sengio and Monte Bareo could finally be taken. However, shortly afterwards, the 44th Landwehr Infantry Division had to leave Italy as they were being sent back to Galicia to fight off the Brusilov offensive of 1916. Go check our previous video if you want to hear more about that. Only in October of 1916 was the regiment actually moved back to the Italian front, along with the rest of the mountain units, taking part in the Battle of the Isonzo, the 8th one, on the Komen Plateau, and the 9th battle at the karst plateau. "1917 started off with an imperial decree. On March 19th, the Imperial and Royal Landwehr Infantry Regiments number 4 and 27 were to be renamed Gebirgsschützen number 1 and Gebirgsschützen number 2, respectively. Number 1 still based in Klagenfurt, and number 2 in Laibach, which is modern-day Ljubljana. In case you weren't bored of the same river over and over again, we come to the 10th Battle of the Isonzo, May 14th and May 16th, in the heights of a mountain in Slovenia. The 11th battle would take place in the same area, as well as Spacapani. Still repelling the energetic attacks by the Italians between August 19th and August 24th. And finally, the battle we all know about, the Southwestern Front, the 12th Battle of the Isonzo, also known as Caporetto, where the Austro Hungarians were joined by the Germans to fully advance over the Isonzo, finally 12 times the charm, forcing the Italians all the way back to the River Piave from the 28th of October to the 11th of November 1917. So now under the very fittingly named Oberst Alpi, Gebirgsschützen number 1 succeeded in crossing the River Piave. However, their success would not be exploited. After the long advance through difficult terrain, the troops were exhausted and they had a very big lack of supplies and artillery. So in June of 1918, the Imperial and Royal Army Supreme Command once again wanted to advance further past the Piave. However, this appeared to be a mission doomed to fail from the outset. The Austrian strength at the time had been greatly diminished by the strength of the Italian forces, who have since been reinforced by British and French soldiers. Following their failure on the Piave and follow-up attacks by the Entente, the disintegration of the emaciated armies began to accelerate. As the year went on, the level of desertions just grew and grew due to lack of supplies, anxiety over the home front, and weakness in command, leading to the amount of open insubordination also going on. Adding to this tragedy, in the final weeks of the war, Gebirgsschützen Regiment number 2 began to mutiny, and they took their officers prisoner. Gebirgsschützen Regiment number 1 had to end this mutiny, which particularly stings, as these were two regiments who fought alongside each other for most of the war, as well as on the home front. They would have lived near each other. They're essentially regimental next door neighbours. And as well, it wasn't just their own officers that they took and that they were fighting it out with. They ended up capturing the regimental staff of the 3rd Battalion of the Gebirgsschützen Regiment number 1, and the technical infantry company were also taken prisoner. Once the war was over and the mutiny ended and the Danubian Empire had collapsed, Lieutenant Colonel Schenk of the 1st and 2nd Battalions of Gebirgsschützen Regiment number 1 went home to Carinthia, ending the battalion's demobilisation. However, their fighting was not yet over, as the troops in Slovenia had other ideas. Ludwig Hulgath, previously a lieutenant colonel of the regiment, is appointed commander of the Carinthian Volkswehr in the new German Austrian state. Not German as in the country, as in ethnically German Austrian state. From mid-November to July 1919, members of Gebirgsschützen Regiment number 1 were now a part of the Carinthian Militia Battalion number 1. And they begin fighting against a man called Rudolf Meister and a unit of his soldiers from the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes, what we would later call Yugoslavia. some of which were previously members of Gebirgsschützen Regiment No. 2, and they began fighting over Corinthian land, where members of Gebirgsschützen Regiment No. 1 ending up fighting in around 8 battles total, the names of which are on the screen now. If this conflict interests you, we have already made a video, Corinthian Plebiscite 1920, what was it? There you can learn more about the conflict. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the video detailing the history of our regiment throughout the First World War. Thank you all so much for watching both of the videos. It is a subject we are lucky to be able to research with the help of a wide variety of sources across Europe. So stay tuned for more videos coming soon, and be sure to leave any comments or suggestions in the comments section below. As always, we're always happy to learn more or answer any questions. As always, please be sure to check out our Instagram page, as we're pretty active on there. Still the same name, Mountain Men Living History Group. And feel free to just DM us any questions or just talk to us if you're interested about the subjects. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.